Right now we're going to have Diallo to speak.
Yeah.
And he's going to give us some information on what we should do next. What does the community need to do? Elections are over. And he's going to come from a place that we don't get to hear talked about much, and it's important to us as a people. So I'm very happy and pleased to have him. Please sit, because we got a video tape. I'll give you this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He's going to tape, and this just means hurry it up if you can.
Gotcha.
Okay, so here's Diallo. Diallo, what's your last name?
Just call me Diallo Sekou.
Diallo Sekou. Diallo Sekou, and he's going to talk about what's next. What are we going to do with the elections being over?
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it. I appreciate the platform. I appreciate the people that's here. Before I get into what we do next, I want to point out a few things. Just a few things. I got 5 minutes, right? What I found in my research, one of the leading issues that we're dealing with here, not only in Duval County but around the country, is our education. Those who are in public school systems. And if you haven't realized, the Duval County public school system, or the nation's school system, is a system, what I call the public school, which is a breeding ground for slaves. Why? Because the most popular thing that people are using now is public school pipelines of prison. But I'm calling the public schools a breeding ground for slaves. Why slaves? Why breeding ground? Let's look at the definition of slave real quick. A person who is wholly subject to the will of another, one who has no freedom of action under the control of another. That's under Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition. So then, let's go look up the term definition of prisoner. One who is deprived of his liberty. One who is against his will, kept in confinement or custody in prison, penitentiary, as a result of conviction of a crime. So prisoners have no rights. They don't have a right to vote. They're basically under slave laws. And the other underlying thing what people don't realize about prisoners is they're basically stock inside of a warehouse. Okay? So it's really not just the physical, but that thing that you got at birth called the birth certificate. That birth certificate is a bond or a certificate that is on Wall Street that's worth millions of dollars that private industries make money off of internationally. All right, that's in a nutshell. So, a couple of things about these public schools. 1997 they passed something called the Zero Tolerance Law. That's basically zero tolerance for very little thing, talking back and not following the dress code. They would send children to the juvenile justice system versus to the office or the referral. 2009, they passed SB 1540, which made it even stricter. Now I'm gonna throw these stats at y'all real quick so you can understand the severity of this new form of slavery. It ties into the Jim Crow movement. It ties into a system that was never meant to be integrated. All right? How do you know? Because if we are 17% of the nation, we're 42% of special education, and only 1%, or I'm sorry, 3% of advanced and talented. You understand those numbers? We're 17% of the entire country, but we are 42% of the special education, okay? And only 3%, even a smaller number, of advanced and gifted. Let's look at the graduation rate in Jacksonville. It's 36%. 36%. Here's another thing. Florida has 7 of the 10 worst counties in the country for schools. 7 out of 10. That's was that 80%, 85% of the worst schools in the country. And we have a legal system with a state attorney who happens to be here in Jacksonville that happens to help push along little boys that look like me or women that look like y'all straight into the judicial system. So it's help funding. You know, when you have a country that spends $70 billion on prisons, it can't spend anything on the school system. Here's something you should know about the school system. There's something called Pavlovian methodology. That's P-A-V-L-O-V-I-N. This is introduced into American school system. This is a method of training, literally training. This is when they reward the students for doing something good. It sounds like, oh, that's nothing. You know what you do to a dog when he sits? You go into your pocket and you give him a treat, right? This, whether you know or not, is neurological, because you're having a psychological effect on the child based on him doing what he's supposed to be doing anyway. Teach your children that their only reward, the reward for doing good, is your grades and learning, progressing. That is your reward. Not candy, not a trip to the zoo, not a pair of shoes, but learning. This is your career. Your reward is learning, because you have to compete internationally, and America is behind internationally when it comes to education. Why? Because they really want a bunch of neck-down individuals. They don't want thinkers. They have what they're introducing, what they call critical thinking, but it's not really critical thinking. It's just another methodology that they've introduced into the school. Oh man. 2009, the graduation rate was at 36%. 07, it was 23%. 15% of out-of-school suspensions are us, and we are only 1% of the gifted in the school system in Duval County. Now this is from the Office of the Civil Rights Department in Washington, D.C. And I have a binder that's about 6 inches thick, full of stats and solutions as well. 1 in African American boys and 1 in 10 African American girls received an out-of-school suspension. 1 out of 10. Duval County is one of the 20 largest districts in the country. It has a suspension rate of 72% and an enrollment rate of 46% of African Americans. The Hispanic students represent 24% of the students with disabilities and 42% of students without disabilities who are subject to seclusion. Here's another one. Students with disabilities and mechanical restraints. African American students represent 21% of students with disabilities under what's called the IDEA, but 44% of students with disabilities who are subject to mechanical restraints. I can go on, I can go on, but I want you to understand the severity of these numbers. It's almost what's called a silent war. Why is it called a silent war? Because there's a lady who put out a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. And she mentioned that she called it a war because they had meetings in the early 20s about how can they control the people without war. And they said they can't do it without war. So but what they did was, you have what's called, what I like to call, what's in the Constitution is involuntary servitude. You know, the 14th Amendment ended slavery. And it ended involuntary servitude, which means you can't be a slave. But it didn't end voluntary servitude. So those people that left the plantation didn't have anywhere to go, so they had to go back and become indentured servants. And so you have a classroom where the people are basically held hostage, not necessarily held hostage, but they're there to institutionalize the information that they're given. So one of the solutions is opt out, which is in the Florida State legislature. It's called 1008.34, which teaches you about the laws that you can have, the rights that the parents. One is join the PTA. The other is take your school back. The other one is become the first teacher, not the school. The responsibility is on you to teach your children. 3, 4, 5, get into controlling and writing policies. The other one is join with me and others, and we will flyer the schools with this information. We will march and bus out Capitol Hill. We're going to do a demonstration, a sit-in. So those who ever want to get arrested, this is your opportunity. We'll bring national and international light on the city and how its racist laws have basically been held back. If you go back to Ward Brown versus Education, it's been over 61 years. So when you look at integrating, it never was integration, it was desegregating. All right, basically taking the people and put them in other people's schools. But the education never changed. It never went to a left and right brain curriculum. You never got teachers that love the children. You understand? So when you have teachers that love those that look like them or don't look like them, or have high expectations of the children, it exceeds racism. So, but we don't have that. And after the election, one thing we have to do is, every 3 months, we have to have education on getting people back voting, registering people to vote, and getting people back their civil rights. We have to get the policy that Chris signed about people immediately after prison getting their rights to vote immediately after prison. America has almost 3 million people in prison, and half of that is African American people. Okay, China has 1 billion people, and they don't have 3 million people in prison. So that just tells you that there's something going on. So I'm done.
So you need to give us some cheat sheets. Thank you.
All right.
I do want to say, especially before you leave, we are for 5 seconds putting these chairs. If everyone could put your chairs in a circle. I am getting a marker. We got to put on this board what's next. Some of these actions we talked about, these are being implemented tomorrow, tonight.